Chino library then? What you're thinking?
Well, we approached the director of the San Bernardino County Library about having a tribute mural of your Tio Chano inside the library. And at the time, he expressed some interest. However, he has since been promoted, so that might be a conversation we might want to follow up with him, because I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, very good. You want to do any pointing to anything?
Well, this one reminded me. He had this painting on canvas of the corn goddess, and I remember we would show it at different exhibits back in the 70s, and what was interesting about that was the painting and the artwork and the beauty of it, spoke for themselves. But the educational aspect, I didn't know there was a corn goddess, and back in the 70s, we didn't have the luxury of the internet, and it was pre-Chicano studies. So he was our Chicano studies professor.
Oh, okay. Well, I know that when I saw this, and Charlie explained his raíces de la cultura chicana, the roots of the Chicano culture, because this was a 3-sided parking lot, 1, 2, and then there was a third side, and this ran all through it. So when you're showing students this and you're saying, this was symbolic, so everything wasn't about the symbolism. There was some beauty with just putting in flowers,
exactly,
different colors,
yes,
and the idea of there's art within the art,
yes,
as well as symbols, yes, within the art. So
that's true. One of the other things I remember in talking to Chano, when he would explain the importance of murals, and he would talk about the great Mexican muralist. And he was an authority on the Mexican muralists, and he would talk about them and their political views and their art, and you could see influences of the great Mexican muralist, right, in his work.
As we talk about that, and I want to take us over to this, because a lot of people see Emiliano Zapata, and the only thing they think about is the revolution and so forth. And I said, but he had some strong meanings in terms of the things that he said. He said, I'd rather die standing than live on my knees. And I said, so during the Chicano movement, as students were rediscovering their history of Mexico, he became really a figure that stood out because of that saying that he goes, hey, we need to fight for our liberty, for our freedom, for our rights. And then along the way, in this same, when we were doing the curating of this, and I mentioned to the curator, I said, I learned the power of colors, where you have some drawing emotion, and then you have this dark blue, emotionless kind of colors combination. So there's an art lesson, again, within the art lesson, as well as the history lesson and so forth. So
I agree. In addition, I want to say something about what you just said. I agree with you in terms of the man's philosophy and his principles of Zapata. But the other thing that Chano was doing, and other Chicano artists at the time, was they were helping us, because this was extremely important for us to take pride in our culture. So by introducing us to these great heroes of our past, it was instilling culture, pride in us, because that was something that we really needed at the time.
Yes, I agree. Joe, would you mind commenting on, I know you reacted when we walked into the exhibit and you saw these. Would you mind giving us some more of your reaction?
I was really impressed, but at the same time not surprised, because one thing I knew about Chano, and at the time, was that resources were limited in terms of just buying art supplies and the paint, etc. And he was extremely clever and creative, and it didn't surprise me that he would see something, like a what is it, a gurney,
Army surplus
cots,
stretcher,
a
medical
stretcher, and he would take that and use it as his canvas. It just made sense, and like I said, while I was extremely impressed with the work itself, the idea that he would take this and reuse it is not surprising.
And it's interesting, when I saw these put up, I had never noticed the cracks in the canvas.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about that earlier. If you go to a museum, one of the things that people value about a painting that was done in Renaissance time is, you can see the cracks in the paint and the cracks in the canvas. And I'm going, okay, well, does this qualify? Because there's cracks in the canvas
exactly.
here.
This is the aging, the authenticity.
Exactly.
I think they're beautiful.
Yeah.
I really do.
Awesome.
And how clever.
When we got here earlier, and I showed you this particular display case about some of the things that are another part of Chano the artist, and I showed you the card, and you kind of looked and said,
I want one. I didn't get one. I didn't know he had cards. But I remember this publication, the Consafos, because back in the 70s, again, there was no internet. This is how we communicated in terms of information regarding the Chicano movement. And I remember this publication. I had a copy of it, and I was so proud of the fact that Chano's work was in it, but also, being the defiant person that he was, that he would paint this and it's your grandma, right? His
mom,
this beautiful woman saying, "Hey, here's to you," and it was a sign of the time where we were really making a statement about, we're not gonna take this oppression anymore. And that was, I think, part of the message that is doing. And again, just the artistic aspect of it just speaks for itself.
Yes. We can move on over to the Huelga corner that I call it. This is when I spoke with the curator about putting this particular corner together because of the use of the what we call the Huelga eagle. And it was interesting that over a dinner sometime back, Jose Medina, the assemblyman that's featured in here, tells me very matter of fact that he goes, "Well, I have one of the murals in my office in Sacramento." And okay, I said, "And how am I going to know that unless you tell me?" So we included him in the exhibit for obvious reasons. He's very proud of that mural that's at UC Riverside, and he's a UC Riverside alum. So.
Well, I think there's, if you look at this and contextualize it in terms of when the mural was done and what was going on at that time in the 70s, to think that we fast forward to 2018 and we have a member of the California Assembly, elected official, who has a picture of that mural in his office. Back then, these murals were looked upon as being defiant, as being anti-establishment. So, I guess the passage of time, and there's a lot of side stories to that, where now we have people in these positions where back then it was an anomaly to have a Latino elected official. But it just gives me extreme pride to know that somebody appreciates his work at that level.
Joe, I want to walk over to the mural that you had a hand in, the Chino mural, we'll call it. Wow. Tell us about this.
Well, I was about 15 or 16 years old when he did this mural, And it was in the early 70s, and it was at the height of the Chicano movement. And Chano, as we all knew him, was our inspirational leader. He was a community activist. He was fighting for social justice. So he was our mentor, our coach, and somebody that we really respected. So as one of his mentees, if we want to call it that, I used to hang around with him, and he told me that he was going to do this mural. And so we went out there to look at the space. It was just a blank wall. I went with him to go research the paint at the local hardware. I actually helped him lay it out. He used a chalk string and laid this out, and it was all, you know, lines coming from a central point, and then he started, you know, adding the figures. But when he was conceptualizing this, what he told me, he said that, and the parts that I can remember, that this mural really symbolizes, you know, the mestizo, the Chicano. And he told me that